Good morning, ladies and gents. Today, you'll see I've already got code on my screen because I've been actually poking at things already this morning. The idea is that we started in on a grid tool yesterday that I think was a bit overkill. I don't think I need a tool actually as powerful as what I was working on yesterday. So today we're going to simplify it a little bit. I've already done a lot of the simplification work actually because I'd rather not just keep poking at a single tool the entire time. I essentially am just adding a button to grid nodes because the thing that takes the most time is taking a node and then taking its neighbors and attaching the node and its neighbors and vice versa. Right now you see it's a very one-way process. I only set the link of one node at a time. And that was just for safety reasons, just so I wouldn't muck with my existing setup. But I do need to go into the other node and actually set those as well, so that nodes are two-directional unless I say so. The neat thing is that flexibility does exist for me to be able to say, oh, well, you know, I feel like having, you know, a one-way wall here, like a portal that only goes one direction somehow. Something like that is possible in this system, and that's part of why I like it so much, honestly. So I've got the other grid node. So I just need to say other grid node dot, and I need to remember to do opposites here. But other than that, there really is not much here that I need to worry about a ton. And in fact, it's hopefully simple enough that I can just do some simple copy paste and get away with it. Specifically, we set all of our links like so. And I need to close my visitor view so I can actually see if people are talking. And I just realized I also had a partially popped collar. Not my style. Definitely not my style. Although apparently putting on the most wrinkled clothing in the world is, because these things, they've just been sitting on the floor a little too long. Anyway, alright, so the idea is when I click on a grid node, and also let's get rid of this grid parent thing. That was a dumb idea. And we have learned our lesson. So, grid nodes. So yeah, now there's this calculate node links, which is awesome. Let's see, because I should be able to find one of these nodes and just say, just calculate new ones. I'm noting that none are changing. I'm hoping that's because I'm doing the... Oh, wait, no, there's an invalid cast here. And so the debugging begins. I do what I can, but sometimes you just can't avoid it. There we go. I was making my preview a little larger so I could see it without destroying my poor eyes. I already stared at a monitor, I would say, probably 10 to 12 hours a day, which is why I have gunners at work, keep me from going completely blind. And they do help on days when, you know, I stress my eyes a little bit more for various reasons. So, wait, where was the error though? Line 12, okay. Okay, so when I say calculate node links, that target is coming back invalid cast from source type to destination type. Really? Interesting. I am kind of curious what this is then. Is a grid node? I don't... Oh, okay, it's not a game object. I'm actually grabbing the grid node object itself, so I don't need to do a lot of casting that I was doing before. Let's just call it node script, nuke these. There we go. I actually like it in that case because it lets us remove code. I'm always a fan of removing code. It's one of those cases where, as a programmer, things don't tend to be perfect, not until you can't add anything more, but until you can't take anything more away from it and have it still be as functional as it was previously. Okay, so the debug works. The only other thing I want to do here is I want to put in just some debug logs so I know what I'm attaching to. Let's see. You know what? Yeah, why not? I think I'm going to do this a slightly different way just for my own sanity. Int attached nodes starts out at 0. Each time I do an attachment like this, I'm just going to increment it. Actually, wait a minute. Why am I putting this in? Oh, of course I'm putting it in each of the if statements. If the distance is too great, it doesn't count as an attached node, and therefore we should not be counting it. There we go. Sweet. And finally, at the end of all this for loop goodness, attached to nodes. So this should tell us how many nodes it attaches to, which is always good information to have, whether or not we're actually debugging or whether this is something that needs to just happen. For example, now we can test this and it should say it's attached to one node. There we go. If we go through here, attached to 3 nodes. Good. Each of these is giving us pretty much the truth of what we expect. Now, you'll note that some of these aren't actually prefabs. So I'm going to go so far as to make copies of the prefab. I really wish it would not do that to the name. I really, really, really wish that. And now I hit this, and hey look, there it goes. That's really cool. To be able to just click a button and have it attach the nodes as I expect it to. I probably at some point want to build some way for it to do it to all the nodes, so that I just say, tell every node, just recalculate yourself, because I don't want to deal with it. I forgot you could do math in Unity's thing. Okay, so here's one I'm not too sure about. It says it attached to 3 nodes. At least as far as I can tell it did. No, it says it attached to 1 node. Ah, but we're not clearing previous ones inside here. So what I need to actually do, let's see. I didn't think about that as something that needs to happen. Okay, so if our node script north link exists, I guess I should say is not equal to null, just to be perfectly clear about what I'm expecting here. If you expect a boolean to be true or false, you can kind of leave that in as is, but if it's a object like a reference, you kind of want to make sure that the null is or isn't there, and it's a little clearer to those looking at your code what's going on. And we just want to do this for each of the links. So for the north link, you note we dive into the south link and then say, okay, the north link's south link should be nulled out. We're going to do the same thing with the south link. The south link's north link should be emptied out. So we're always messing with opposing ends so that they always end up even. Because most of the time, these are going to be pretty obviously dually connected. It wouldn't make much sense if you could walk to a location and then not walk back using that same exact route, or using the reciprocal route, I should say. There we go. So that should fix this tool up a little bit. If I hit calculate again, aha, the attached to 1, and I still note it's drawing multiple lines. Okay, apparently you need to update the editor before it happily does that. You have a west link, good. You've attached to 2 nodes. I really need to stop collapsing, because that's causing me some confusion. There we go. Much better. On the upside, I can at least much more quickly generate nodes than I could before. One of the big things previously was it just took forever for me to put these things in place. I had to go in and say, okay, I've created the node, and now I'm going to fixing the name, honestly, is now the other big thing that I'm tempted to try and, like, clean up. But when I say calculate nodes, okay, I go away and come back, and you'll note the grid node is all fixed up. So it's definitely doing its job, which is fantastic. I do wish I could draw a thicker line, because it's really difficult to see what's going on here. That's the one thing that's getting to me, is the fact that it's really difficult. Let's see here. What am I even... Oh, I'm hunting for the... Yeah, for the grid node. On gizmo selected, or on draw gizmo selected. Can I draw a thicker line? No. I only have a draw line. There are ways to do it, but they look a little overkill. So I think for now I'm just going to leave it as is. Most of them require diving into either messing with the GUI matrix, which I'm not a huge fan of. I guess that wouldn't be so bad. I'll leave it for now, though. As long as I can see the information, that's all that matters. I'm just trying to make the information a little more obvious to me. I don't need all the color changes. That's the only thing I think I can do without. I'll just make all these connections red. There we go. Looks good. Works well. It's what I expect. Let's see. Did not mean to do that, but we set that to 3. We recalculate your node spots. You can see it now connects to 2 different nodes. Here's 5. There. Recalculate. I wonder if I have to, like, if there's some way to trigger a repaint when I do this. Just to... Yeah, there we go. Editor, repaint. Let's see if that helps. Because that's the only thing left, is the fact that when it does a lot of this, no, it doesn't redraw that line immediately, regardless of what I do. That's actually kind of impressive that it goes so far out of its way to just not update the editor unless it really has to. Gosh, I thought there was some way that you could, like, dive into the editor and say, okay, the scene is dirty, so to speak. And what that essentially means is that the editor needs to update something, needs to draw something, because things have changed. Let's see if I can look it up in Unity's stuff. Editor utility, okay. Marks the target object as dirty. Okay, I mean, I can try it. We'll see how it goes. We'll see if it helps at all. For all we know, it might. Okay, so I'm going to create a new node. We're going to shift it over to -3. You note that its red lines are still kind of in bad places. I hit calculate and it updates. Cool. So that's what we were hunting for. That one function. And that turns out to usually be the case. It's not often that a common piece of functionality like that gets completely forgotten. It just tends to be the fact that sometimes things aren't named correctly, sometimes it's difficult to find the right function because of either poor naming schemes, lack of documentation. There's a million and one reasons why sometimes it just doesn't, it's not that easy to make use of. And the nice thing is, like, in a quick moment, I've been able to set and recalculate a lot of grid node points. And if we look at our grid, we can actually see a pretty, like, that's a good pattern. That looks nice. All I have to do now is hop into here, type grid node once, it sets all their names. Like, I don't mind them having different names, but it just kind of looks messy. The same way that it looks kind of messy for all of these to have different names as well. Also, why do you have a box collider? Get out of here. So, just to test this sucker out, for some reason my forward isn't walking me anywhere, which is interesting. I do have a starting node, right? Let's just override that for good time's sake. Oh, you don't have any links. There we go. Uh-oh, that shouldn't be there though. One thing to note, these angles, not good. What is going on here? Why is it... let's see. Let's toss a little debug stuff into our math here. Just curious more than anything else. Distance between the position and the child node dot position and just so I have all the information in front of me. I'm a big fan of whenever I debug, I go a little overboard just in case. I'm always happy to have more information than not enough, because not enough tends to mean, whoops, that I have to go back and fix something. Where are the ones that are misbehaving? So this one now has none, which is a little bizarre. Okay, so that's cleaned up. That one worked just fine. Like, that did exactly what I would expect it to. It's this one down here that's not playing nice. So I'm going to clear off my editor setup, and let's see here. So the distance is 2 on the nose. So that should be fine. And then it says it only attaches to one node. Weird. Okay, well, let's see. It's like each time I reset one, all the others change or something. Something bizarre going on here. Grid, how do you look? Mostly right. This one isn't correct. This is so weird. This is really freaking weird. Like, it's weirding me out. It is that weird. Alright, well, I mean, as long as every node here should have proper connections, so I don't know. Party, you are being weird. Okay, so I want this third node as my start place. Oh, and we're back to this. For some reason right now, I am back to, let's see here. For some reason it walks backwards when I hit forwards. I'm curious if that also is the case for the left to right. Okay, no. So east and west is fine. It's just north and south that are being jerks, for lack of better words. If movement possible, get next node. If you're facing north, I mean, each of these just uses the link that is provided to them. Let's check this starting node. So it's got a south link marked. So I think I'm just putting my links in backwards for north and south. So that's luckily a fairly easy fix, and we can get these debug lines out of here. Let's see here. So when you reattach the south link and the north link, there we go. That should set these correctly. That is the one thing I did not do. I did not run a sanity check on my data, which is not a good thing to skip. Okay, good. You have a north node now, as it should be. Can I just click this on a bunch of objects at once? No. No, I can't. At least not without some kind of modification to my code, which I could make. It seriously shouldn't be too difficult for me to just say, by the way, you can do a bunch of these at once. By the way. That looks good. Let's see if that change is easy to make. I'm honestly unsure. I have not tried it before. Custom inspector, multiple, disallow, can edit multiple objects. I think that's where I put that. It might be. Yep, okay, cool. That allows me to just select a ton of them and tell them all, just do your recalculations, and they should all be set correctly now. So now, when I walk forwards, it should actually walk forwards. Yep, there we go. Perfect. Oh my gosh, that's so much better. To be able to actually wander through as expected. So much better. Let's just quickly add in backwards. While we're here, we're looking at the movement code. We might as well. Might. My enunciation is failing me today. Granted, it is 8:20 in the morning. Still, it's not the best. Wow, words are really failing me. It's not the best excuse I've got. I'm sure I could come up with better. Let's see here. So the one thing I'm noting here is that there's a big bug floating around, specifically in that each of these is grabbing the wrong node. Like, we need to be very careful about the... Oh wait, no, they're not. Never mind. Never mind. I just realized I'm completely mistaken. So that's forwards. We say grid node. And actually what I should do, because this happens every frame, I'm actually going to hide it inside this if statement, just to keep it from getting messy and having code that executes overly often. I guess that's a good word. It just sounds weird in my head. So what we need to do is we need to take our direction facing, add 2, and modulus it against 4, which means we have to do this silly, I convert it to an integer, we do all the math, and then we push it back to a direction. So essentially this always grabs the node, or the direction that is the opposite of whatever we happen to be. So if it's north, we add 2, and that should make it south, because I put these in, I put these in, is that clockwise? Yeah, I put these in, actually, no, I put these in counterclockwise order. But what that does mean is that the cardinal directions that are opposite from each other are always a mod 2 difference from each other as well, because there's only 4 objects in the set. So all we have to do is add 2, modulus it back down to 4. So if it's 1, we get 3. If it's 0, we get 2. If it's 3, we get 1. You can kind of see how the pattern gets created like that. If possible next node is not null, then we do our bit of work that comes down to the actual, oh hey, you know, if we can actually move somewhere, we should. So here's our grid node reference. Here's the possible next node. Transform position. And the final thing that I realized was happening, but didn't say anything about, but I guess I'm admitting to it now, is that when you first start, your position is not actually moved to the node that you're starting on. So we just have to say that our position is the same as the grid node reference position that we are attached to. Pretty simple. It means that no matter where this object of ours is, we can take this party object, shift it way off the map, and not really care that when we start, it's just going to teleport us to that correct position, and it's going to look right when we start walking around. Ta-da! Cool. So I'm actually going to take this and commit it so that I don't lose any of these changes, because it's nice to have something, this is kind of a good workable state, and that's not something you ever want to lose. If your code gets to a state where, hey, things look like they work, you probably should keep things there. So we need that grid placement editor change. And I guess I need, wow. That's a lot of things that I need here. But that's how it goes. You add a lot of things to a game, and sure enough, it is going to get a little large in comparison to, you know, an empty project. Wow, I grabbed trees, everything. Terrain. Interesting. I'll have to clean this up later. I really have to clean this up later. There's a lot of things in place here that I know I don't want. So for example, I know I should be ignoring a temp folder. That's just kind of common sense. You never want to commit anything temporary into your repository. Same can be said for anything that is a user-generated file. Something like your solution user options should never go in your repository. Wow, fingers are not responding correctly. Like, come on, fingers. I tell you to type, I need you to type. Otherwise, I'm going to be terribly useless when I get to work today. Feature, party grid movement, refit, and grid node placement tool. Complete. Complete. I'll put quotes because it's complete in that it's functional. It's not complete in that there are still some tweaks I might want to dump onto it. We'll see. Chug-a-lug-a-lug. Off goes this fan. Alright, so we've got movement. So I'm just going to erase all these notes off my board because there are a lot of things that I took care of just now that I had written on my board. So let's see, what else do we got? So we've got our like little scene. We've got our characters. Let's see. Other things we need to start figuring out include, let's see, we'll need weapons and armor, gear to equip. Actually, I'm going to look at my notebook, which is covered in grape stem bits, because I was eating grapes here last night while I was poking at my at the code. All right, so I've got notes all over these archaic things called paper. Honestly, I have a smartphone. It's got like notepads on it. I don't know why I don't use it. It's almost faster. The only thing I can't do is sketch. That's the only thing I like this for more. Okay, so we've got the gridded movement. That's great. We've got the viewport mostly in place. I might want to put like a nice little border around it, or figure out how I actually want the final layout to look. Because obviously, what I have now, while nice and functional, is not it's not aspect ratio friendly. You'll note that as I make my windows smaller, they don't crunch in. They actually just kind of fall off the edges of the screen, which is not good behavior. So that's one thing that I have to do. I've got a half hour left today before I have to take off. I don't really want to start in on combat, mostly because there's a lot of information that hasn't been encoded yet into these characters. They're missing things like to hit. Actually, they have stats. I guess they're missing their weapons and armor and things, which would make combat right now feel a little silly, because everyone would just be punching everyone else. Like, even monsters would have just fists, because nobody's got any gear. So inventory screen would actually be a step towards getting everybody gear and things so that it looks somewhat nice. You click on a character, or you hit I to bring up an inventory screen, and then you can flip between your characters. That would be kind of cool. Trying to think. I actually really liked the book effect that Hearthstone has. That was one of my kind of favorite effects more recently that I've seen, where you actually have a page in a book that looks like paper, and you're essentially rendering the UI to that page. So when you flip the page, as the page distorts, the texture stays on it because it's being projected onto the 2D plane that is that page. And it's a really neat effect, because then as you flip pages, you can see the character pages kind of bend and distort, and it looks like they're on the pages of this book. That might be something I'd want to do on a longer stream, because obviously I'm not probably going to be able to pull that off in an hour. Well, then again, I guess Unity has render textures fairly easily. It probably wouldn't be too difficult. I'll think about it. Let's see here. So anyway, on back to the list of things I could poke at. So I'm just going to put little check marks here, because I've also got check boxes in the list of things I wanted to get done. And I've actually already done the 3 things that I have in the book, which are a party node with an attached camera, right? We've got that. That's how we're able to see out of a camera view, and also, you know what? Yeah, let's do this. Let's add some easing into this, because this is ugly, right? You take a step and it just kind of like snaps to the new position. Like, yeah, our human brains are able to say, here's the logical step. The tree got closer, therefore I walked towards it, right? Our brains are doing the pattern processing, but it shouldn't have to do extra processing. This is a game. You don't come here to work, to make your brain chug on things like that. So let's let's add a little bit, just a little bit of work to clean this up. Specifically, we're not just going to set our position. That's messy. I don't like just setting the position. Let's see here. What I want to do so we could do a linear walk towards it, and I'm okay with that. I'm not too happy with it, but I'm okay with it. Okay, we'll put the easiest kind of easing into place first, just a linear ease, so that when you change positions, it is an ease forwards at a linear pace, and that's that. So what we're going to do is, instead of just setting our position, we are going to set a target position, so to speak. Actually, we have our target position, is the funny thing. So we don't even really need to do that. Just changing the grid node itself should be enough work to start us on the right path. And what's going to happen is, let's see, so the position is going to be equal to did they add a lerp unclamped? Oh my god, they did. That's amazing. Unity, you have added something useful to the engine that I have been asking for the longest freaking time. Anyway, so we're going to lerp between our current position and where we want to be going. And we'll go just, I don't know, I say 0.01 times time dot delta time. So if we left that in delta time, that would mean that we're moving between positions in a second. Right now, 10 seconds might actually be a little overkill. Let's see. We'll see how it looks. Yeah, that's a little too slow. Let's just make this a variable, just so... technically it's movement time, but I'm going to call it movement speed. I know it's the wrong terminology, but we'll be swapping it to something different eventually anyway. Let's just put it at 2 seconds, right? 2 seconds between, from square to square is not bad. Although, oh, whoops, we didn't tie the variable into the actual math. There we go. So that's still actually kind of slow. Let's try. So the only funny thing now is the rotation is also instantaneous. So what I can do actually, if I can almost walk through the tree if I go fast enough, which is kind of hilarious, but at least it's an interesting movement. It looks better because of how easing works. We could do something a little cleaner, or even just go faster. I mean, that would be the other way to handle it, right? Is we just walk between positions faster. The other thing you'll note is that as we get close to our goal, it's kind of easing up to it and slowing to a stop. Mostly because we're not actually doing a linear ease. What we're doing is we're saying move a certain distance between point A and point B. So we move there. Now instead of saying move that same distance again each frame, what we do is we shorten the distance and then say move a fraction of that distance. So the amount we're moving as we get closer to our target, the amount we're moving is closer and closer and closer. And that just gets you to the point of being close enough to the final destination that you kind of just call it good enough. Like you'll note, we do stop moving eventually when we walk to a position, or at least it seems like we stop moving. You'll note that the position actually never reaches the final counter. Like we hit 3 and it becomes 3.00000 and it keeps going because there's more numbers over here. Like this is as close as we can ever get, is there's this 3 on the end. The same with the x position. We don't actually ever reach -1, we reach 0.999992. Part of that is floating point error, and part of that is also just the fact that when you ease, you never get to your location if you do it incorrectly, like we are. Morning, Grim Gary. Nice to see folks joining me. Yeah, it is kind of a Zeno's paradox. I mean, literally it is a walk. You walk half the distance all the time. You never actually reach that end position because you're only walking half the distance. There's always going to be distance left. It's just kind of how it is. We could clean up the algorithm and say, if you're close enough, just move to the position and stop trying. Or the other way we could do it is we could just get a better easing algorithm. That's kind of the obvious thing to do. And actually, I'm tempted to try playing with something, since I've got some time. Oh, puppy is whining. He sounds so pathetic when he does. Come here. Come here. Yeah. Alright, better. He is just not a stream puppy. He doesn't want to just sit here while I stream. He wiggles and squirms and just does not want to... Oh, come here. Yeah, no. He's not being patient enough for me. Alright. Alright. So I'm going to try something. And I've heard this is possible. And I've played with it a little before, but I've never actually... Thank you, dog. I've never actually gotten this to work in a helpful way. Apollo. So we're going to need two pieces. One, we're going to use what's called an animation curve inside Unity. So what this does for us, I need to get it to compile first. So let's just do that. Come on. There we go. So the first thing it does is it gives us this graph editor. And this is great for animations, for a lot of things that require that extra bit of custom information. And what it allows you to do is generate, well, for the lack of better words, you generate curves. And so, for example, if we wanted an actual linear curve, we could then use this and evaluate the curve at certain places to get our start and end position. Now, this requires a lot more information, is the only thing. So, for example, we need a start position, and we also need a time. And you'll note I'm doing what I would say in C++ is a bad thing. And in fact, I'm actually going to go so far as to privatize these. I keep making things public, and it's more of a habit than anything else. I'm not really sure if I should be making these things actually public all the time. So, okay, we've got our animation curve, we've got our start position. Now, every time we move, we need to set a start position to whatever our current position is. That's not too bad. And then the other thing we need to do, we need to reset the time, don't we? The walk time needs to go back to 0. And now what we're going to do, instead of this linear interpolation function, we're actually going to call in, and I'm just going to leave that commented out because I know it works. I don't want to delete code that I haven't stored in SVN because I don't have a backup of it anywhere. What did I call it? I called it the movement curve. Cool. And we're going to evaluate the curve at walk time, because walk time is going to go between 0 and 1 at a certain speed. Okay, and that's all we do, is that, and then we actually feed this into our linear interpolation function. Because what it's giving us is essentially at any given location, it's giving us the function for the output of the function for this line. So if it's flat, it's just going to return 1, no matter what the input is. Versus here, it's actually going to return the same as the input as the output. I did not say that the best way I could. Hopefully it will make sense in a moment. And we're going to lerp between our start position and the grid position. But instead of time, you'll note we're using the movement curve instead. The only thing left is to say walk time is equal to the walk speed times delta time. And I don't think walk speed survived the switch, so I'll put walk speed in. It does not need an initializer because that is a waste of time. Private functions, or private variables, if you want them to be initialized on start, do require the initializer because there's nothing for Unity to deserialize into that location. Unity barely even knows that that variable exists, much less has a handle on how it should work. I'm actually just going to call this movement. Yeah. I like putting headers on things. It makes your, so not only does it make the code a little more readable because you know, oh, all these are related to movement, but also it makes it a little easier when you're looking at the Unity side of things. Oh, how does this all work? How does it tie together? So right now, 1 second should be all it takes. And you'll note it's very straightforward. You start moving, you reach your location, you stop moving. And you very literally reach your location. You'll note before, instead of the 0.9, kind of the Zeno's paradox, as Starch pointed out, that it's actually location 1 and location 5. Now, we don't have anything for rotation, so rotation is still somewhat instantaneous. We can fix that too, but it's same thing though. It's just going to be, let's speed that up. That is really slow. Let's make it take 1/3 of a second and see if that's better. And the other neat thing we can do is we can say, well, linear looks nice, but that quick start and then quick stop is not something I like. Why don't we do kind of what we were doing before? We ease into movement and then we ease out of it. So let's try that. So now you'll note there's no halt, no jarring halt at the end or at the start. It's kind of, I don't know, it feels like somebody who doesn't know how to drive a stick shift, you know, is walking. You kind of the start and stop factor. And honestly, this isn't a bad feeling. I kind of like how it feels to wander around like this. The only thing about it is that if you mash multiple in a row real quick, it kind of stutters, and then you shoot to the end. But even then, it's not that bad, considering. I mean, it could be a little cleaner, sure, but it's not that bad. So this has a little more feel of impulse to it. You tell it walk, and there's an instantaneous response of, I need to go this way. And then as you reach the destination, you ease into it. I'm not actually sure which I like more. It feels a little more instantaneous to do this. And it feels a little less jarring to mash the button multiple times here. That unexpected direction 4. Really? Really, really? Funny, I can walk forwards and backwards, But if I'm facing south and hit down, I actually get an error. Unexpected direction 4. What? Is kind of the best I can come up with. So enumerations start at 0. If we were to do this, we know that north is 0, east goes 1, 2, 3. So actually, as it turns out, I think my modulus is incorrect. No, that can't be right. How am I getting 4 when I go backwards? That can't be right. Just cannot be right. Because I'm doing a modulus 4. Here's the party. So I take the direction I'm facing. We convert it to an integer. Okay, cool. So we know we have a 0 through 3 number. Because you can't have anything else. It just... Okay, 0 through 3. Great. Plus 2. Okay, now we have a 2 through 5. And then when we say modulus 4... Oh, is it doing 2 modulus 4? Oh, crap. Let's add more parentheses. Fixes everything. Let's try that. So we want to add 2, and then we want a modulus 4. I think modulus is coming around in the order of operations before the addition was. So what it was doing is it wasn't saying you should add 2 and then modulus 4. It was saying you should add 2 modulus 4, which is just 2. Oh god, it set all these things back because I wasn't, oh, yeah, that's how I wanted it. And we set the walk speed, I think, to 3. 3 was a good. So I'm just gonna, yeah, there we go. Alright, so we're almost to the point where I have to take off soon. Guys, if you have any questions, and yeah, Starchy, 4 heroes lurching around the countryside is really what it is going to be at first. At least until I get some combat and some other things mixed in here. The big thing for me is figuring out how I'm going to do dialogue. That is a monster of a task. If I want to have anyone in the world, you have to be able to talk to them. But there are so many ways to do dialogue poorly, and there are also so many ways to handle dialogue that I just need to kind of puzzle out how I want it to go. One of the big things that I kind of messed with at first was my first introduction to first-person dungeon crawlers, which was Crusaders of the Dark Savant. I think that's Wizardry, I want to say 5 or 6. And what it did was essentially it let you type in your response. So you could tell somebody to F off. You could tell them, hey, what about this? Like, you could try talking to them about things in the future that haven't happened yet. And it was interesting because you could literally say anything. Now, the system was inherently flawed because they had a very limited number of things that they understood. And you could essentially just say keywords. And the keywords would be what allow you to allow the NPC to understand you. So you could walk up and say, where is the armor shop? Or if you just say armor shop, they would say the same thing. They would essentially ignore everything except words that they knew they understood, and then they would flip through their dictionary and spew the information about that thing. Granted, that's not the worst way to handle dialogue. I'm just kind of curious if there's either a better way or if there is a something else I can do to kind of streamline it. Because sitting there typing things in is not really the best way to handle it, at least from a user experience point of view. You know, you type something in, you misspell it, you hit enter, the character says, sorry, I don't know anything about that. And the player might not recognize that they've made a spelling mistake because it's, you know, the name of some monster or the name of some, like, military leader. And because they got the name wrong, they think, oh, well, he doesn't know anything about this character. When in reality, it's not that he doesn't know anything about it, it's that you just didn't spell it right. And so there are some deficiencies to that system that would have to be taken care of. So that's one approach. There's always what I like to call the Mass Effect approach, the rotary wheel of things to say that don't always one-to-one match up with what you actually do. If anybody has played Dragon Age, you will remember every once in a while you say something and he does something completely different. And it was always a little baffling when that happened. Not the end of the world, but it was kind of silly that there was a slight disconnect between the writers and the player. So let's see here. We've got movement. And movement, I'm actually going to put movement enabled at the top of this whole mess because turning the whole thing on and off is kind of the most meaningful part of this whole thing. We've got walk speed and walk time. That's good. Direction facing, I'm actually going to keep that above movement enabled. So we've essentially got the most immediate things that are going to change all the time. So we'll be toggling movement enabled on and off. And your direction facing will change constantly. Versus something like your walk speed is just a setting we're going to set at the beginning of the game and then kind of forget that it exists. We're just going to use it like we would a constant for the most part, unless something comes up that we really, really don't want to do. So okay, we've got movement, and I'm actually going to go into rotation a little bit. I'm trying to think of how I want to do that is the only thing. So I think what I want to do is say, I want a rotation remaining. I could, it doesn't really matter a ton, I guess. I'll leave it public. Why not? At least for now. If I need to come back in later and clean it up, whatever. I can do that too. Now, when you turn in a direction, what I need to do here is say, okay, don't just rotate, but actually... God, it's so weird to work in degrees again. It really, really is weird.